on the one hand, what happened on October 7th was terrorism. On the other hand, nobody would, countenance the deaths of innocent civilians. Countries may be justified, at least in their own minds, in responding. But you cannot have a response which does not, every response must take into account something called international humanitarian law. And the fact is that whatever the rights and wrongs of the issue, there is the underlying issue of the rights of the Palestinians and the fact that they have been denied their homeland. So,
welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtedar, your host, and today I want to salute Dr. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, for his strong, morally clear statement about what is happening in Gaza. And it is not that he said what he said because he was visiting a Muslim country, Malaysia, but he has said this a number of times, in fact, a number of times in the past few weeks. I will share what he said with you. You have already seen the video. I will share what he said with you and go point by point to illustrate why there is so much moral clarity in what he said. It's a very short paragraph, just a very short statement, but it is fully loaded. And I wish that Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State of my country, the Foreign Minister of the United States, was half the man that Dr. Jaishankar is. If he was half the man that Dr. Jaishankar is, we would have a much better world in the last 3 years at least. Joe Biden and Blinken have confused what is moral and what is immoral. They have lost moral clarity in their pursuit of policies which no sane person would support or defend. In their desperate attempts to defend Israel, to protect Israel, no matter what, they have confused not only what America's identity and moral principles are, but they have also tried to undermine international institutions and international law. And to me, this is very important. What Dr. Jaishankar has done in his statement is he's made it very clear what is right and what is wrong. Yes, we talk about all gray matter. Yes, in policy matters, you have push and pull, and he talks about that too. But he says, yes, there are interests which may impede how we act, but we should not lose sight of what is the right thing. And that is why in this conversation, I salute Dr. Jaishankar for his moral clarity on policy issue. But before I address what he said, subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and make sure you share this video with as many people as you like. So this is what Dr. Jaishankar said. On one hand, what happened on October 7 was terrorism. He didn't mince words. It's very clear. His position is very clear. What Hamas did on October 7th is terrorism. There's no doubt about it. But then he goes on to say that every state must respond in a way that takes into account something called international humanitarian law. He says it very clearly, countries may be justified in their own minds that they are responding in the right way, but their response cannot ignore international humanitarian law. The fact is, and then he proceeds to say, the fact is, whatever the rights and wrongs of the issue, there is an underlying issue of the rights of the Palestinians and the fact that they have been denied their homeland. And then he finishes off his brief comment on this issue by saying, India has continued to support the two-state solution to the long-running Israel-Palestine conflict. So let me break it up for you. So first, he didn't mince any words. He called what happened on October 7th terrorism. I agree with him fully. you cannot call what Israel is doing in Gaza a genocide without also calling what Hamas did terrorism. Because while Hamas targeted civilians and killed many of them, 1,200 of them, Israel is also doing the same thing on a large scale. So you can't morally justify what Hamas did and morally condemn what Israel is doing. Both are showing disregard for basic human values and human lives. And so I fully support this idea that October 7 was terrorism. Hamas, for reasons that no one has explained so far, seemed to have several hours to themselves. It was like they were left home alone to do whatever they wanted in Israel. 6 to 8 hours before the security forces came and started fighting them and pushing them away. And they choose to target civilians. They could have targeted military bases. They could have had other government institutions which they could have targeted. So Hamas did choose the civilian targets in that period, and also they wanted hostages. But then his second point, that every state must recognize that they cannot respond without regards for international humanitarian law. Unlike Europeans and many Americans and American leadership, he's not giving Israel a pass. India, by the way, is Israel's number one weapons customer. The number one country to which Israel exports weapons is India, at least in 2023. So there is a strong security connection between India and Israel, yet he's not mincing his words. He emphasizes that states must respect international humanitarian law, and the message is very clear that Israel is not. He reiterates, and then he goes and he repeats India's position on the two-state solution. We know that India has long supported the two-state solution. In fact, among the non-Arab countries, I'm not very clear now whether it's non-Arab or non-Muslim countries, India was the first to recognize Palestine as a state. India actually has an ambassador to Palestine along with an ambassador to Israel. So India's record on the two-state solution is impeccable. They have never wavered on this issue, unlike some Arab countries which had started forgetting about it until October 7th happened. But to me, the most telling feature of his brief comment was the third point that he made.
There is the underlying issue of the rights of the Palestinians and the fact that they have been denied their homeland.
There is underlying issue of the rights of Palestinians and the fact that they have been denied their homeland. This is very important because all the Western leaders who are commenting upon, even those who are now acknowledging that Israel has gone too far, European leaders, even the morally dead foreign minister of England, Cameron, is acknowledging that, yes, too many civilians have died. And that's what the US position is. Too many civilians have died. We would have been okay with maybe 10,000 less. I don't know what the number is in their head. Like how many civilian deaths are acceptable to American and European leaders. I don't know that. But at least they acknowledge that 32,000 is too much. When they talk about this issue, they talk about the issue as if history begins on October 7th. That there is no history before that, that Hamas has just appeared out of the blue and targeted Israel for no reason at all. That's the whole thing. These are evil people. They just popped up and they committed these humanitarian crimes. And so whatever Israel does in response is justifiable. No, the context is this is what Dr. Jaishankar is saying. There's an underlying issue of the rights of Palestinians and the fact that they have been denied their homeland. They have been denied their rights and their homeland for decades. Israel has occupied West Bank and Gaza. Gaza has been for 16 years in a state of blockade. Nothing could go in and nothing could go out. Everything was under Israeli control. And this whole idea of Hamas, go back and look at the emergence of Hamas. Israel encouraged the emergence of Hamas. Israel has accepted and allowed Hamas to operate in Gaza because it gave them the moral or political justification to do whatever they liked, especially stealing land from the Palestinians in West Bank and building literally thousands of illegal settlements. When Western leaders talk about Hamas, they never talk about the role of Israel in the continued existence of Israel. Now, Netanyahu says he wants to destroy Hamas, which is kind of stupid because Hamas is a movement now. And the more civilians he kills, the more people are going to join Hamas. So to me, just these few statements that Dr. Jaishankar made had clear moral clarity that you cannot see even October 7th, even though what Hamas did is terrorism, it is not in vacuum. It is as a consequence of the systematic denial of Palestinian rights and their homeland. So to me, that is very important to bring history into this game and not talk about it as if history begins on October 7th. Yes, he has said it very clearly that there is no ifs and buts about what Hamas did. It was terrorism, and India, clearly as a victim of terrorism, cross-border terrorism, is not going to mince his words, and I understand very clearly why he's doing it, and I support it. But the United States have been very, very disappointed. For months, while more than 50% of the Democrats were opposed to support what was happening in Israel, acknowledged that what Israel was doing was genocidal. Joe Biden, who likes to lecture to other countries about democracy, continued to pursue a policy that his own party does not advocate. So he was pursuing the policy that the Republicans advocate, at least when it comes to Gaza. And now when he discovered that there is going to be accountability and a large number of Americans are going to vote against him if he continues in this vein, he has called for a ceasefire after repeatedly vetoing ceasefire. Has the United States stopped sending weapons to Israel after allowing a resolution for immediate ceasefire in Gaza past UN Security Council? I have seen no statement from the government saying we're going to stop doing that. In fact, only yesterday or on Tuesday, the Israeli defense minister was here asking for more weapons. He wants F-35s and F-15s to fight Hamas. Really? Those are weapons of war. Even after realizing that he could lose his election, all the changes that you're seeing, Senator Schumer's speech criticizing Netanyahu, Joe Biden's statement, Kamala Harris' strong statements that if Israel were to invade or attack Rafah in the southernmost tip of Gaza, there will be serious consequences for Israel, in spite of all the threats that Biden's administration is making. They are also undermining their own positions. So, for example, after the UN Security Council resolution passed, American officials have been going around repeatedly saying it is non-binding. So what is the point? So this is the problem with Blinken and the way he's running his State Department, speaking through both sides of his mouth. He wants to say that we are supporting or allowing a UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire to pass, and then we are telling everybody that it's not binding. Great. That resolution also calls for Hamas to release all the hostages. Does that mean it is not binding on Hamas also? Or is it just the part about Hamas is binding, but not the part about Israel? See, that's the problem. That's why I think Blinken is not half the man that Dr. Jaishankar is. At least there are some people in the State Department who are unable to stand up and support these current policies, and they're quitting their jobs. But Mr. Blinken, he continues to speak from both sides of his mouth, saying, oh, we are so worried about the Palestinian civilians. Wait a minute. let me just give more bombs to Israel and come back and, yeah, we are more worried about how many children have died. No, wait a minute, I just have to okay another bunch of dumb bombs which will land all over the place. So this is how he's operating. Making speeches about concerns about civilian deaths and then sending weapons, getting around the Congress, getting around the Biden's own memorandums about national security and sharing of weapons with other countries, breaking their own rules. This war is going to erode the credibility of America worldwide. America is the richest country in the world and very powerful when it comes to weapons. Yes, you can see how we can kill and kill and kill and kill and enable others to kill and kill. And how we have billions and billions of dollars to give to other countries who are pursuing a geopolitical interests that suit us, like in Ukraine. So yes, America still has that kind of power, but I think the power to do good, that doesn't exist. At least this administration does not have any power to do good. I can't see any good that has come from the Joe Biden administration on the foreign policy issue. So I'm going to stop now and conclude with once again saluting Dr. Jaishankar for his moral clarity on this issue. And I hope this acts as an example for at least European leaders to take a position that is morally right. Of course, we cannot, expect that from Joe Biden, who is actually a Jewish nationalist. He keeps saying he's a Zionist. He's a Zionist. So I think that the United States will try to tread a very narrow path, try to do just enough in the hope that Arabs and Muslims and the youth, I suppose he's going to probably even cancel more student debt, and he's going to try and buy the vote of young Americans who are also quite upset with his foreign policy. And then I think he will throw a couple of crumbs to the progressives. And of course, the whole fear that Donald Trump will become president may carry him through in November. But if he wins in November, then I guess he will then come back and tell Israel, you have 4 more years, do whatever you like in Gaza, because the Constitution doesn't allow me a 3rd term. So I hope that those of you who are watching this will look at Dr. Jaishankar's speech and the clarity with which he has spoken about these issues. And so please don't forget to subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and share this video with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtedar Khan. Be safe, be happy.